In a world that glorifies wealth, power, and fame, we forget that the greatest revolutions are not born in palaces or parliaments, but in ordinary hearts that choose courage over comfort. True greatness rarely wears a crown. It often wears humility, patience, and quiet strength. The Stoics taught that character, not circumstance, defines a person. And through the pages of history, we see how a single act of integrity, done without applause, without recognition, can shake empires, awaken souls, and inspire generations. But how do such revolutions begin? Terminated working or banners, blinds, but with a whisper inside a human heart. A whisper that says, "I will not betray what is right." This is the story of such people. Not heroes of myth or legend, Blister had human beings of flesh and doubt, who simply refused to live without purpose. They remind us that strength is not about control. It's about calmness in chaos, clarity in conflict, and conscience in a world that often forgets its own. These are the ordinary people who made extraordinary impact. Number 1. Rosa Parks, The Silent Revolution. It began on a quiet evening, December 1, 1955. Killing a woman named Rosa Parks sat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. The day had been long, the air was heavy. Her feet ached, but her soul was heavier still, safe dead down by decades of silent humiliation. When told to give up her seat for a white man, she didn't shout, she didn't protest. She simply said, "No." That single word carried the weight of centuries, cramped their rebellion. It was revelation. It was the voice of conscience whispering louder than fear. In that moment, history held its breath. A bus stopped, but a movement began. Rosa Parks's calm defiance became the spark, overriding that set the civil rights movement ablaze. She was arrested, but her dignity was unbroken. Blindness, her quiet resistance rippled through generations. She proved that peace can be more powerful than rage, bouted and silence more commanding than noise. Her strength was not born from anger, but from clarity. She understood that the truest form of courage is not loud, it is steady. The Stoics would have called it apatheia, the mastery of emotion, brightness to let the external world shake the internal one. In that small act, Rosa Parks reminded humanity, propelled humanity with its values, is stronger than any system built on injustice. She moved the world by refusing to move, and her legacy whispers even now. Sometimes the quietest stand echoes the loudest through time. Number 2. Mother Teresa, The Power of Compassion. Far from fame and fortune, in the narrow lanes of Calcutta, quitting a frail woman wrapped in a white sari walked with silent purpose. Her name was Mother Teresa, a name now synonymous with mercy. She didn't build monuments, she built mercy. Permissions was not to change the world, noise, but to heal it in whispers. She tended to the dying, embraced the diseased, and found beauty in the faces the world had forgotten. While many searched for God in temples, she found him in suffering souls. Her days were filled with pain, not her own, but that of others. The cries of the abandoned became her prayer. Pensions and the touch of a dying hand became her sacred ritual. Her strength was not physical, it was spiritual discipline. Every day she faced doubt, exhaustion, despair. Yet she rose, calm as dawn, moved by a stoic truth, that suffering, when accepted with love, becomes service. Mother Teresa once said, "Do not wait for the chart." How perfect to the mother she was trained in apparently before. The computely charantas. This was no longer. Will imagine was also to be used by trade market. The traumatic was left with. Mother Teresa once said, "Do not wait for the chart." With an interesting love was time. With imagine that verses, silenced, nothing at legal, do it alone, person to person. And she did, every single day. Her greatness was not in her miracles, but in her mindset. To see value where others saw waste. To see light in the darkest corners of human existence. The Stoics believed that virtue is its own reward. Mother Teresa lived that truth. She asked for nothing, yet gave everything. Compassion was not weakness. It was the most disciplined strength the human heart can achieve. Number 3. Malala Yousafzai, the voice that would not be silenced. In a world ruled by fear, a 15-year-old girl found her voice. Malala Yousafzai lived in a place where girls were told that education was forbidden. But truth cannot be forbidden. Pressured cannot be killed. She spoke when silence was safer. She wrote when words could cost her life. And one day they tried to stop her with a bullet. But her voice rose louder than ever. She was also hard but from ever in charge. She was readily stopper. Malala's resilience is a modern echo of Stoic virtue. She did not seek revenge. Misinformation over rage, purpose over pain. Her calm defiance transformed her wound into a weapon of awareness. They thought the bullets would silence us, she said. Imprisonment. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage were born. Her story reminds us that no external force can harm the soul unless we surrender to it. That is Stoicism in its purest form. Malala teaches us that no one is too young, too small, or too ordinary to change the rhythm of the world, if they dare to stand for truth. She was not fighting merely for education, but for human dignity, for the right to think, to question, to grow. And she reminds every one of us that courage is contagious, that when one person stands, others find the strength to rise. Number 4. Greta Thunberg, the still storm. It began with a child and a sign. A quiet teenager sat alone outside her country's parliament, pressing the world's silence toward a dying planet. Her name, Greta Thunberg. The world laughed. Then it listened. Greta didn't speak with fury. They took earlier Tapler laughed. They didn't take one world with a stilling plain, which we was mentioned with own confirmed. Didn't speak with fury, she spoke with focus. She didn't crave applause, she demanded action. Her calm intensity, her refusal to be distracted by ridicule, punish became the roar of a generation. Remorse. Her message was simple, yet unyielding. Our house is on fire. It wasn't metaphor, it was truth. And truth, spoken calmly, has the power to shatter complacency. Shields, she reminded humanity that moral clarity is more powerful than political chaos, that logic and conviction, when united, can move the conscience of the world. Greta's sentencing, Greta's courage was not loud rebellion, it was disciplined persistence. Crimson ocean of criticism, oceans of doubt, yet her resolve never bent. That's the Stoic essence, to act rightly without needing approval, committing to stay steady when the world sways, to lead without ego. She became the mirror of our neglect, the still storm that forced us to look within. Misinformation Thunberg stands as proof that one quiet, determined voice clang awakened the sleeping conscience of civilization. The 5. Exhibitions. Clara Barton, the angel of the battlefield. War tests the limits of the human soul. Imminent smoke, blood, and chaos, most people flee. Clara Barton walked toward it. Armed with bandages, courage, and conviction, shameful, she entered battlefields where no woman had gone before. She tended the wounded, comforted the dying, and gave order to chaos with her calm, steady hands. While men fought for victory, unrest for life, she carried supplies through fire, allergies risking death to restore hope. They called her the angel of the battlefield. Crimson were made of willpower, crimson of discipline. Her compassion was not born from softness, minions the strength to face suffering and not turn away. She understood that service is sacred, that duty, done quietly, is the highest form of courage. Her creation of the American Red Cross was not just an act of charity, it was the embodiment of Stoic service, duty over comfort, action over fear. She proved that healing is as heroic as fighting, and that compassion, when disciplined, can outlast the noise of war itself. The Stoic truth. Plight Rosa, Teresa, Crimson, Malala, Greta, Clara. 5 names, 5 souls. Each began as ordinary. Each became timeless. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for power. They simply acted, with conviction, with calmness, with clarity. The Stoics taught that greatness begins within, not in fortune, not in fame, but in the discipline of one's own mind. To control one's thoughts is to control one's destiny. These women mastered that art. They faced chaos with composure, hatred with humility, missions and uncertainty with unwavering will. They remind us that leadership is not about control, it is about example. Manslaughter is not born from rage, crimson. That strength is not in the sword, embarrassment that refuses to surrender. So, when the world seems broken, when fear tells you to sit down, remember Rosa's quiet no. When despair whispers that love is weak, Malala's hands in the dirt. When you feel small, remember Greta, abandonment, Greta's sign in the rain. And when life feels like a battlefield, remember Clara's courage under fire. You don't need to be extraordinary to make an extraordinary impact. You only need to begin, calmly, bravely, sincerely. Because true power doesn't shout, crimson, it stands still, it listens, striped, it acts. And when one soul stands firm in truth, the world begins to change.